All right, council meeting will come to order. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
And first order of business, we'll have an invocation in our Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Paul Elgin from the Presbyterian Church is here tonight. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. The Apostle Paul told his student Timothy that first of all he urged him in all supplications and prayers, intercessions, and thanksgiving be made for all people, for kings, for all who are in high positions, that we may lead a peaceful and quiet life, godly and dignified in every way, because this is good and it's pleasing to the sight of our Creator. So thank you for the chance to share these prayers with you tonight. Pray with me, please. Mighty God, our Father, bless our city and make it a place of freedom, peace, where all can dwell in dignity. Bless these leaders and the leaders of our country. Dwell among us so that your wisdom is present here tonight. Bless all local and federal workers, especially our military, law enforcement, and emergency responders, that they may be safe and effective in their callings. Bless the people of this town, that they may not only be blessed, but be a blessing to others. Show us your ways, O Lord, and bless this council and their decisions here tonight, that they might be instruments of your will. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
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 Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Pastor Paul. Okay, the roll call this evening. Let the roll call show that Ralph Varela is not here. The rest of the council is present.
Move to excuse.
I move to excuse Councilman Varela.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Mr. Varela is excused.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of the council regular meeting minutes from April 2nd as they are proposed. The Airport Advisory Board from October 26th is about 6 months late. I move acceptance of it, but I don't know that it's real relevant. The Historic Preservation Commission from February 26th and the Planning and Zoning Commission from March 1st accepted as written.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Claims against the city.
Mayor McFarland, I move to accept and pay the claims dated March 28th through April 10th, 2018.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept the claims against the city. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, claims are approved. Meeting agenda approval. Larry, any changes from staff?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, staff would ask that you move item L1, which is our public hearing on the regarding the proposed alternative use of bond financed property to right between or right after item H, right after our public comments.
So after public comments, Larry?
Yes.
Does council have any changes?
Are you talking about consent agenda, or is that been mentioned yet?
Haven't talked about consent agenda, just the agenda. Okay, no other changes? All right, I'll entertain a
Mayor
motion.
McFarland, I move that we approve the agenda as corrected. Second. Or amended.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved with the noted change. No special presentation tonight, but we have next item G, consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine matters and will be enacted by one motion, one roll call vote of the council. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or member of the public so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence of the agenda. Does anybody have any changes to the consent agenda?
G3 and G4.
G3 and G4. Okay, anybody else? All right, seeing no changes, then I'll entertain a motion to accept.
So move.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please, on the consent agenda items?
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Fortson.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Herman.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. Okay, then the next two items are, we'll take, first is G3, consider ordinance number 3070.
Mayor, what I was concerned about on this item was, Pueblo Drive, they have a temporary turning point, and I know Matt had mentioned Pueblo Drive several times. Is it going to ultimately connect with anything else, or is it just going to go on the Hit Treckle Road?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, if you recall, the council approved the final plat for the Santa Cruz crossing, which included the platting of the right-of-way for Pueblo Road extension south of Rodeo. And that plat has the road terminating about, with a temporary turnaround, about halfway before it gets to the road called Santa Cruz Drive, which then goes over to connect to Treckle.
Right.
So the answer to the question is that the temporary turnaround would be with this plat. With the next plat that extends it, then it would be built, Pueblo Drive would be
It would connect to the
extended
next plat.
to Santa Cruz Drive, and Santa Cruz Drive over to Treckle Road.
Okay. Looking out for Matt.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I'll entertain a ordinance, please. Gloria?
Ordinance number 3070, an ordinance of the council of the city of Casa, Arizona, conditionally accepting dedication of public easements for temporary vehicular turnaround, drainage, and for public utilities related to the Santa Cruz crossing development.
Mayor McFarland, I move passage of ordinance number 3070 as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Fortson.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Herman.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. Okay, item G4.
The only question I had on G4 was that, to me, our SWOT study is not necessarily our plan, but it's a planning guide. And I'd like to see maybe the word guide put in there, because if we hold this up and say this is our strategic plan for the city of Casa Grande, it makes it sound like we're going verbatim, and that's hard to do because a lot of it's open-ended. So if we could just add the word guide to that, strategic planning guide, I think it'd be better worded. And I would move to amend it by adding planning guide to resolution number 5091.
Strategic guide for the city.
Planning guide.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilman Powell, if I can just make sure that I'm understanding what I'm hearing you ask for, and I think it's certainly doable, is that this economic development plan, which is just one component of all of the consulting work that the consultant had done, is not actually the city's organizational strategic plan, that it's
No,
really
that's
just
what
a
it
planning
sounds like it's
document.
written here.
Yeah, I think
So-
that's, and that was my question to you earlier.
Exactly.
Was the same question. So, and maybe there's just maybe it can be reworded, or the document could be just called something different, to Mr. Powell's point.
I don't necessarily have any issues with a strategic planning guide or a planning guide from an economic development perspective. I'm going to ask the question as our city attorney listens on as to whether or not we need to modify the resolution
Do we need
to
to
achieve that.
approve it and then amend it?
So, no, you certainly don't need to approve the resolution. As I'm hearing, if you'd like to, instead of calling it the Economic Development Strategic Plan, you want to call it an Economic Development Strategic Planning Guide,
Yes.
you can simply, move it that way originally, whoever makes that motion, or if someone makes a motion, as originally presented, then you can amend it. But you can certainly make that change, and you would change it both in the title of the resolution, just to Planning Guide, just to be clear, and then also in the text of the resolution. And just to be clear, as Mr. Raines was saying, only one of those 3 documents that are attached, 2 of those are just sort of the baseline ones. Only the growing horizon is going to be attached to the resolution, not the other analysis that were just provided to give council the background.
But aren't all strategic plans kind of, it's a model, but it's not like or not even, or guidelines, you don't have to say planning guide. In most cases you see, they're worded as strategic plan. We've gone through all these exercises, to put together this plan, so I just don't think it's necessary. Well, it is our plan. We've gone through a process
Part of our
and.
planning, but it's not the plan.
I think that what Mr. Powell's alluding to is that this is the strategic plan that we as a council put together.
Right.
And this guide, his feeling, and I agree with him, is this guide should be underneath this plan. And it will be, as I've been told today, that this strategic piece, this economic piece is going to be incorporated into our strategic piece.
Right, but it is a strategic plan for economic development, but I think
it's just semantics, but I think if it,
whatever.
I'm all right with it. I don't have a problem with it.
Mayor McFarland,
Wait, let me get a resolution first.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I was just going to address a couple of Mayor McFarland's comments there. He and I did have an opportunity to chat today and discuss the plan, and I understand the concern is that the council would not want any of our organizational members and/or our community to confuse the strategic planning document that the mayor and council has been going through, that I've been referring to as the organizational strategic plan, the City of Casa Grande strategic plan with our economic development strategic plan. As I've pointed out to the mayor, economic development, just like many of our other departments, certainly go through a strategic planning process that ultimately creating goals and objectives that and ultimately will funnel up into achieve the goals and objectives, the focus areas of the mayor and council. They are referred to as strategic plans, traditionally just earmarked by that department, if you will. Where what I had assured the mayor today is the question was, how do we ensure that the objectives that are being outlined in our economic development strategic plan make it into our organizational strategic plan? And as the council is aware, we have been working on action plans from a staff perspective. We're down to one focus area left, and we'll be able to get that out to all of you in a draft form. What I'm envisioning is many of the implementational items that have been outlined in this economic development strategic plan will ultimately become action plans to our organizational strategic plan. So you could, and we'll break those out by fiscal year when we look to achieve that. So that's the process that I would envision and that we're actually driving to from a staff perspective to marry the 2 documents.
Right. But Larry, and we have a police strategic plan and a fire, and they're called strategic plans.
Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Fitzgibbons, you're absolutely right. They are called strategic plans and are specific to those departments. Now, both of those are in a bit of a need of updating because we've not done that they're running the useful life since they've been created. But yes, we traditionally will refer to a strategic plan within that department as such as well.
So do we need to change all of them to say the same title then to be consistent?
Yeah, strategic plans.
Could we even just put something like supplement, like the economic development supplement, or I just think there's gonna be more confusion if one's called a planning guide and the other ones are called strategic plans, so it just seems as though there's gonna be confusion on what it is.
strategic planning guide is what the wording would change to.
I know.
If you read what's in here, it's open-ended.
Right.
If somebody said, that's your strategic plan, and you don't have action plans, you don't have any of this done, it's an incomplete plan. So I would hate for somebody to pick that up and say, Casa Grande doesn't really have an action plan. They have some things that are opportunities and that are plus and minus, but they haven't, the decisions haven't been made, they haven't been categorized or put into an action item yet. So I think just saying the planning guide, it's a strategic planning guide, means we're accepting this as information that we'll use as we plan the final strategic planning guide, which has not been done yet.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it either way.
And Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my only recommendation, I think, addressing Councilwoman McBride's question, is that we ought to be consistent, and certainly if the council's pleasure is to have a strategic planning guide from a departmental perspective, from a staff perspective, I don't see any issues with that. These action items will be implemented as part of our organizational strategic plan. But ultimately, we ought to stay consistent, so when we bring back future departments, other departments' strategic plan, we'll be identifying them as such.
Right.
Okay. All right. Do you have any problem with that, Richard?
Yes, sir. The council's.
Well, it's your baby, that's what I'm asking you.
We're going to implement, doesn't matter the name for us.
Okay.
We're going to move forward and make.
Which is, yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
it's,
Okay.
doesn't matter what it's called.
Yeah, because I think it's a good plan.
I think so too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, can I get a resolution number then for G4?
Resolution number 5091, a resolution of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, accepting an economic development strategic plan for the city of Casa Grande.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of resolution number 5091 with the addition of the third line that reads strategic plan, make it planning guide for the city of Casa Grande.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion? I kind of cut everybody off on that. I didn't mean to do that.
Just want to move forward with it.
Okay. All right, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember McBride,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbon,
Yes.
Councilmember Clarkson,
Yes.
Councilmember Powell,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Herman,
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. Okay. So the next item on the, thank you, Richard. The next item on the agenda is item H, public comments. So I'll open the floor to public comments. If anyone would like to address the council, please come forward and state your name and your address, please.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Hansen. My address is 1670 North Pinal Avenue, number 12470, Casa Grande, Arizona 85122. I was here at the last city council meeting, and I brought up a issue of false charges being brought against me, and how it's resulted in Arizona DCS removing my children from my care, and them still to this day remaining in state custody. I still have not heard back anything from the city to this day. I have contacted the police officer supervisors. I've come to the last meeting, and I've been compelled to file a notice of claim against the city. I brought today a list of crime victim rights to read. It's very short, but I wanted to read it to help you guys understand the importance of falsely charging somebody and how it can negatively affect an individual that is falsely accused and falsely charged, and the rights that have been deprived, my rights and my children's rights. So bear with me. This is out of the Arizona Laws 101 Handbook for Non-Lawyers. Crime victim rights. A victim of a crime has a right to be treated with fairness, respect, and dignity. That's a quote from the Arizona Constitution. The Constitution of the state of Arizona contains a victim's Bill of Rights. It was added to the state's constitution to preserve and protect a crime victim's rights to justice and due process. Under the Victim's Bill of Rights, the victim of a crime has a right to be treated with fairness, respect, and dignity, and to be free from intimidation, harassment, or abuse throughout the criminal justice process. To be informed upon request when the accused or convicted person is released from custody or has escaped. To be present, and upon request to be informed of all criminal proceedings where the defendant has the right to be present. To be heard at any proceeding involving a post-arrest release decision, negotiation plea, or sentencing. To refuse an interview, deposition, or other discovery request by the defendant. To confer with the prosecution after the crime against the victim has been charged, before trial or before any deposition of the case, to be informed of the disposition. To read pre-sentencing reports relating to the crime against the victim when they are available to be available to the defendant. To receive prompt restitution from the persons or persons convicted of the criminal conduct that caused the victim loss or injury. To be heard at any proceeding when any post-conviction release from confinement is being considered. To a speedy trial or disposition and prompt and final conclusion of the case after the conviction and sentence. To have all rules governing criminal procedure and the admissibility of evidence in all criminal proceedings protect victims' rights. And to be informed of the victim's constitutional rights. The Victim's Bill of Rights is set forth in Section 2.1 of the Constitution of the State of Arizona, and is embodied in Section 13-4401 through 13-4440 of the Arizona Criminal Code. I've read that and shared that with the City Council tonight to remind you and to express the issue that's at hand. I was not seeking to file a notice of claim against the City of Casa Grande, but I've been compelled to. I was seeking justice to have my aggressors apprehended and be brought to justice. And I have suffered, and my children have suffered enough. And I would like to know when City Council is going to respond to any of my requests. When should I expect to receive any answer?
Mr. Hanson, you won't get a response tonight because we are compelled not to respond,
I understand.
considering this is not an agenda item. So we'll take your comments into consideration, and I'll ask Mr. Raines to, or Brett to respond back to you from the city.
Okay. See, the concern of mine is that even when talking with an attorney that's representing the city in city court, after seeing the evidence, they're still proceeding against me with the case. And it just blows my mind to even comprehend, with all the evidence that's been presented, why my aggressors are still at large and why my children are not home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Is there anyone else who would like to approach the council?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, John McGuire, 941 East Penny Lane. Now that I'm getting a little bit more healthy, I felt it was my duty to be a little bit of a thorn in your side, staff side, for a couple moments here. But on the serious side, as we start to get into another election cycle here that started, et cetera, as you all know, one of my goals is to remind what has been discussed here a little bit tonight, the city image and some of the things that we've got plans set up for now and things we want to accomplish. And as we start to hear plans and goals of our candidates, there's some things I would like to get some updates on from staff. I know we've had 3 study sessions before every council meeting lately, but some of the things we haven't heard about lately are Life on Main. What's going on with that project that we had a plan 2+ years ago and seemed like we, really were excited about it and haven't heard anything updated on that. The park, the upgrade of the park, remember we were going to have the new road that was going to go in front of the old police station and the splash pad and all this nice garden and everything. That was at least a year ago that we haven't heard any update on for a while. So that, and then of course the big one, which Mr. Powell will be happy to bring up at any point in time, is for Francisco Grande. where, where are we on that? We haven't had an update on that in quite a while. And all of these, again, get back to my point of they enhance, those projects are important to our eventual city image, which I think is important to our economic development. And so if we just get them sometime, Mr. Raines, if we could get some of those back on the agenda for an update for council and the city, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Anyone else like to address the council tonight? All right, seeing no one, I will close the floor, and we will move to item L1. If you recall, this was an item we moved up in the agenda. This is a public hearing. It's regarding the proposed alternate use of bond finance property, specifically in the facility located in 1900 North Pert Park, otherwise known as our community rec center. So, Selena, I'll throw it to you.
Yes. Mayor and members of council, tonight we have a public hearing regarding the proposed alternate use of the community center. You might recall that in June of 2016, the city issued tax-exempt bonds to finance the property to preserve the tax-exempt status of the building and allow for alternate use. For example, the Boys and Girls Club, for them to be able to lease and use the property. We're holding a hearing tonight per IRS regulations to preserve the tax-exempt status of the bond. And so tonight we have Tim Stratton, our bond counsel, who will facilitate the public hearing and provide additional information.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff, residents. My name is Tim Stratton. I'm with Gus Rosenfeld, the city's bond counsel. And as Ms. Morris indicated, the property, which is now being considered for alternate uses, was originally financed with the proceeds of a tax-exempt bond in 2016. Whenever we do a bond issue, because the city receives a tax-exempt interest rate on that, there are many requirements and restrictions that come along with how that property can be used. One of the permitted uses is to lease the property to a 501c3 entity, and it is my understanding that's what's being contemplated now. So the purpose of this hearing is to clear the way for a potential go-ahead on that lease should the council wish to move in that direction. The notice had to be published in the newspaper prior to this hearing, and simply what the hearing is for is to take public input on that potential, what we call in IRS speak, change in use. Since the property is no longer going to be used primarily by a government agency, but by a 501c3 entity, the tax code allows us to finance those activities on a tax-exempt basis. So that activity does not jeopardize the tax-exempt status of the bonds. The bonds will remain tax-exempt. We did provide language for the lease agreement, which would obligate the 501c3 to follow those same tax-exempt regulations. So they can't do things such as for-profit activities on the property and things of that nature. So at this time, Mr. Mayor, we would simply ask that you open the floor to the public and ask if there are any comments regarding this project. And if there are none, then we can adjourn the hearing and we've fulfilled our requirements under the IRS regulations. And I'll stick around for any technical questions.
Thank you, Tim. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Mary?
Can you just give me a little, so you say primarily being used by, and it's going to be the Boys and Girls Club, so define primarily. I mean, I see it as a joint use.
So if more than 10% of government finance property is used by a non-governmental entity, it's a percentage threshold, and that comes right out of the IRS tax regulations.
Okay, so it's a space thing.
It's a space.
Not a time thing.
Actually, council member, it can be both space and time, but the primary function is a square footage basis on a property lease.
Okay, I'm just concerned that this is a community thing. community, and of course, Boys and Girls Club are our community. So I
Absolutely.
just wanted to be sure that we had
Nope,
that clarified.
And that's why the IRS code allows 501c3s to get almost as good of treatment as private entities. It's just we have to do, well, I'm sorry, as governmental entities, but we have to do one additional step, which is to have this hearing.
And that's what we're doing.
And that's what we're doing tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I'll open the floor for public comment. If anyone has any comment on this particular issue. Actually, it's not an issue, it's an opportunity.
He's depositing checks.
Okay, seeing none, then I will close the floor. And this is not an actionable item, so there's no vote that's required on it. So we'll move to the first item under I, approving the terms and conditions. Pardon me?
I just wanted to comment
On which one?
on L1.
Oh, L, okay. Mr. Powell?
Yes, I think our experts left, but the, I'll ask Brett, what bothered me was the hearing is essential to ensure there's not a negative impact regarding tax exempt status for the city of Casa Grande bonds due to private use by one or more 501c3 organizations, including Boys and Girls Club. Alternatively, we could restrict private use of the facility. Does that mean that that if we go ahead and vote this in, that it's okay, or we don't actually have a vote on it, it's a public hearing? How does that put us in jeopardy? As long as they're paying a lease, doesn't that make a difference, or?
Mr. Powell, I think, as I read the RTA, and of course Tim just, ran away, as I would too, once the hearing was closed, if I had the opportunity. But I think the RCA was simply saying, and keeping in mind, there's no action item tonight.
Right.
This simply, as he said, allows you to consider entering into a lease agreement with a 501c3. Now, to date, the one that staff has presented to council as something to potentially consider is with the Boys and Girls Club. And to make sure that the tax exempt status of the bonds, by having that hearing, if we allow them to enter into a lease, our bonds would remain tax exempt. If we had not held this public hearing and entered into that lease, we could lose the tax exempt status in our bonds, which would be catastrophic. So this simply allows you to consider that lease without jeopardizing the tax exempt bonds. And again, that will be at a later date.
That's your question. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so then we'll now move on to item I1. Chief?
Mayor and council, if you remember, we discussed this item a couple of study sessions ago, was the agreement with AMR and the city of Casa Grande. So it's recommended that the mayor and city council approve a resolution approving the ambulance transportation agreement between American Medical Response, AMR, and the city of Casa Grande. And I don't want to bore anybody by going into many details, but I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Matt?
This is a good agreement, I know we talked about it the other day.
Yes, from the city manager's office and us, that we felt was the best deal we were going to get.
Okay. Mr. Powell?
It's retroactive into last year, and then it would it be renewed at the end of 18, or what do we do after the 2-year period's up?
It's a 2-year contract, and as I mentioned during the presentation, this is a short-term solution to determine the CON process, which we do have scheduled for your study session coming up in May.
There you go. That's what Matt wanted to do.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to point out to the question that Mr. Powell had asked, it can go through February 2020. But as the chief has indicated, we actually, and at that point in time, there's always an opportunity for us to have negotiated a more longer-term deal with this company. As the council knows, we have also been evaluating the potential of pursuing a certificate of necessity, and we'll be coming before the mayor and council to at least introduce some of the financial obligations of that endeavor at a future meeting.
Okay. And I'll entertain a resolution number, please, Gloria.
Resolution number 5093, a resolution of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, approving the terms and conditions of an ambulance transportation agreement between the city of Casa Grande and Southwest Ambulance of Casa Grande, DBA Southwest Ambulance, DBA American Medical Response, and authorizing execution by the city manager.
Mayor McFarland, I move for adoption of resolution number 5093 as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbon.
Yes.
Councilmember Clarkson.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Herman.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, moving on to item I2, considering an ordinance accepting a bid from Standard Construction Company. Kevin,
Thank
I think
you.
it's you.
Staff recommends that the mayor and city council authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Standard Construction Company in an amount not to exceed $141,775. That does include a $39,000 bid addition that we had as a bid option through this process. And we're also asking council for a owner's contingency of $2,597 to bring the project total to $144,372. Staff is taking advantage of the Community Development Grant program funds to help us move forward with our ADA compliance plan. As City Council may recall, we did an assessment of the entire city to identify where we currently don't meet ADA or the public right-of-way access guidelines throughout our system, and then through the CDBG program, we're able to fund these projects currently. This project, if approved, will be bounded by Central Avenue on the west, Casa Grande Avenue on the east, Melrose Drive on the south, and the alleyway just north of Saguaro Street on the north. And it will include the repair of 17 curb ramps, 3 alleyways, sidewalks, and over 6,000 linear feet of sidewalk will be removed and replaced along with curb and gutter. This program was budgeted in this year, so there's adequate funds to fund this project. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Lisa?
Kevin, you talked about the compliance plan. What percentage of that have been funded since then? I mean, are we like at 50% now or way lower than that?
I would just say this is a very long-range plan.
Okay.
Of course, it's going to be very expensive to go through the entire city and upgrade everything at once. So what we've done is we put this plan in place, and then we're going to take bite-sized pieces every year. Of course, we don't have the funds to do it all at once. The fortunate thing is a lot of our community are new subdivisions, so they all meet ADA compliance. So this is just going to be focused in the older areas.
Okay. So you haven't prioritized in that plan. So this area was one of the high priority.
We've prioritized, but through the CDBG program, we have to look at those areas that meet that criteria, and these are the areas that have rose to the top.
Got it, right. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Kevin? All right, seeing none, then I'll call for an ordinance number, please, Gloria.
Ordinance number 3072, an ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, accepting a bid from Standard Construction Company, Inc. to provide the construction for the 2017 Community Development Block Grant Sidewalk Improvement Project, authorizing expenditure of public funds in an amount not to exceed $144,372 and authorizing the execution of a contract.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of ordinance number 3072 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbon.
Yes.
Councilmember Clarkson.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Herman.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. Next item, I3,
This is Matt's.
ordinance accepting a bid for RWC International for the purchase of a 2019 water truck cab.
Yeah, those trucks.
Thank you. Staff is recommending that the mayor and council approve the purchase of a 2019 Workstar cab and chassis in an amount not to exceed $116,133 from RWC International, Phoenix, Arizona, utilizing the state of Arizona purchasing contract as our best method to get a good deal on this vehicle. The current budget provided for this replacement of Unit 643, which is a 2002 water truck utilized in our streets division, primarily used to wet down the gravel roads to help us comply with the PM10 regulations, as well as adding water to a lot of different work areas where we work on drainage projects so that the soil material is workable. The existing unit being replaced has just over 126,000 miles on it. In 2014, we looked to replace this entire unit, but at the time we chose to keep the cab and chassis in service because it had remaining useful life, but we replaced the tank on the back of that vehicle with a stainless steel tank. Now the cab and chassis have finally come to the end of their useful life, so we're going to be utilizing all of the tank equipment and just replacing the cab and chassis. We're also going through the evaluation process of how to upfit this vehicle, in other words, mount that equipment on there, and we're currently going through the process of receiving quotes. We expect the maximum price of that portion of this to be $16,000, and that's within staff spending authority, not having to come back to council. We're also evaluating whether we're going to install this equipment in-house. We're just looking at what our resources are, and we'll make that decision here in the near future. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Herman.
Kevin, I'm delighted to see you're using that tank. And the stainless steel tank should last many years. And I have done research, and used water trucks are very hard to find that are in good condition. And this one you've had for 16 years and 126,000 miles. So I'm really good with this one, Kevin. So thank you for everything.
Anyone else? Okay, can I get an ordinance number, please, Gloria?
Ordinance number 3073, an ordinance of the council of the city of Casa, Arizona, accepting a bid from RWC International Ltd. for the purchase of a 2019 water truck cab and chassis, authorizing expenditure of public funds in amount not to exceed $116,133.19, and authorizing the execution of a contract with or purchase order to RWC International Ltd. in accordance with the terms submitted to the Arizona State bid list.
Mayor McFarland, I move for approval of ordinance number 3073 as presented.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Courtson.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. Next item, I4, consider ordinance accepting a bid from Phoenix Pumps for sewer pumps.
Thank you. Staff recommends that the mayor and city council approve a contract with Phoenix Pumps in an amount not to exceed $75,924 for the purchase of 3 submergible sewage pumps. At our 12 MGD wastewater treatment facility, the first part of that process is our headworks, and that's where we take all the flows that come gravity fed into the system and then pump those up into the treatment process itself. These pumps are vital to the proper operation of the treatment facility, especially this stage of it, and it gives us the capacity to pump a peak 24 million gallons a day flow at a maximum peak at full use of the plant. We did go through the bid process and received 5 bids for these pumps. However, only 2 bidders met all the criteria established in the bid process. And the apparent low bidder, we determined was not the low bidder because they did not add the taxes, which were clearly included in our bid submittal. which ended up Phoenix Pump being the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. We do have adequate funds in this year's budget to cover the cost of this. Only 2 of the pumps are replacement. One is being purchased as a backup pump, so that when we do have a pump go out, we'll be able to remove it, replace it, and then either go through the evaluation of repair or replacement at that time. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone? Mr. Powell?
I just have a question. The A-plus quality effluent, where does that go now? Is that turned down into the wash, or what do we do with that?
So we have 3 primary uses at this time. The majority of it goes to our golf course, and that's why we have the greenest municipal course in Arizona, in my opinion only. Part of that is used for SRP's power plant just south. They use that for their cooling towers. And then a portion of that is discharged into the Santa Cruz Wash, the North Branch. And of course, the first 12 miles of that Santa Cruz is our recharge facility. So it's a managed facility. We currently evaluate how much we pump or discharge into that wash, and then we measure what exits the end of that wash facility, and then we gain recharge long-term storage credits for that water. So that's the 3 primary uses.
It's not the same as potable water, or is it?
Not yet, but darn close.
Could be, I know, but.
Yeah.
So these 2 pumps pooped out, and we need to replace them.
Yeah, it's part of a 7-pump system, so.
Are you trying to see if we're awake?
Any other questions or comments?
So Kevin, instead of getting the spare, there's not a pump there that we can use as a spare that we're replacing? I mean, they're just.
So when we did the original plant expansion quite a few years back, all of those pumps were replaced. Now we're starting to see pump failures. We've rebuilt several of those over the past few years. Again, you need to really take a look at the environment that these pumps operate in. Not too many of you have taken me up on having a tour of the headworks, which you make the right decision not doing that, but I'd be welcome to have you out there. So these pumps are probably the workhorse of the system. It really does lift the sewage up into the treatment process, but they do wear out because of the debris that goes through those pumps. So we have rebuilt some, we have replaced others in the past, but this is an opportunity to start our replacement program.
Any other questions? Okay, Gloria, can I get an ordinance number, please, for item I-4?
Ordinance number 3047, an ordinance of the council of the city of Casa, Arizona, accepting a bid from Phoenix Pumps, Inc. to provide 3 effluent sewer pumps, authorizing expenditure of public funds in an amount not to exceed $75,924, and authorizing the execution of the contract.
Gloria, would you restate that ordinance number for me, please?
Ordinance number 3047.
I think
On here
it's
it's
7-4 or 4-7?
On ours, it's, yeah.
Give me a second, my one on here says 47, and I can.
That's why I asked you to restate it.
It should be 7-4, I'm sorry, it was
Okay.
wrong in my print.
Okay, so what's the ordinance number again?
Ordinance number 3074.
74.
Okay.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of ordinance number 3074 as presented.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please, on item I-4?
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbon.
Yes.
Councilmember Cortzen.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Drummond.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, next item is I-5. It's a resolution approving our cable licensing agreement between the City of Casa Grande and Cox Communication. And I know Ms. Aja was here. There she is. Okay. Okay.
Your Honor,
Stephen?
since we've had a study session about this and we had a public hearing at the last council meeting, I'm just going to cover a few of the major points of the agreement. The term is for 15 years. The license fee is 5%, made quarterly. That's no change from the previous agreement. 3 channels will be available at no cost. We'll still have our Channel 11 city channel available in any of the tiers. If we choose to go to high definition, they agree to meet and discuss with us. Cox will provide free basic tier service to city buildings unless it requires more than the standard drop. We've added PUE to all right-of-way statements throughout the document. Undergrounding is a requirement. Street repairs, any damage or excavation requires it to be restored. Cox is required to respond to complaints from citizens and follow industry standards. Requires Cox to protect subscriber privacy. And added language that Cox will provide us additional information so we can add it to our GIS system. And we have our standard indemnification and insurance clauses. And so staff is recommending approval of this. Rachel is here if there's any questions. Thank you.
I do have one question. We have and I kind of posed this to Larry earlier today, but we have in our 2019 goal, I think, is 100% access to internet by all Casa Grande citizens. Is there anything in this agreement that would help us with that process or that goal?
Your Honor, I'm not sure if there, I don't think there was anything directly related to that.
Indirectly.
Mayor, members of council.
Low income.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is a cable television license, so it has no jurisdiction over our internet product, although I will say that all of our products ride on the same rail. So to the extent that cable television is available to those residents, internet would be available to them as well.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Why did I think that Cox did have?
They do. She just said.
It's just not part of this agreement. So I think and if that wasn't what you were hearing, was the fact that, you know, with Cox and that, which we totally appreciate and with the agreement and that, is there some way though too that Cox could altruistically start taking a look at maybe helping us build that availability of citywide access to Wi-Fi?
To Wi-Fi or just?
Or to the internet, yeah.
I mean, we can certainly have a meeting to discuss what areas are unserved and what it would look like to serve those.
That would, and maybe you can educate us better as to how that can come about, how can we achieve, and maybe building some relationships and partnerships in doing that. That would be great.
Yeah, I'd be happy to set up a meeting to talk about those things.
I realize you don't do Wi-Fi, but you do, but you don't. So it'd be connecting to your.
You give us the
we do have public Wi-Fi on our network that our customers are able to access wherever they are, and it's open. Sometimes we open it for large events, sometimes in the Phoenix metro area. So we're in the business of both of those things actually, but our plant has to be there in order to offer the Wi-Fi.
Well, maybe you can get with Larry and we can set some meeting up or something in that regard.
You
Is that
just
right?
toss some
Absolutely,
ideas
Mr. Mayor.
around.
Yeah, definitely.
And staff is actually looking at some other alternatives as well as part of our action plans for the mayor and council focus areas that will likely run on the infrastructure, the network, either that Cox provides.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions, anybody? All right, then I'll entertain a resolution number, please, Gloria.
Resolution number 5094, a resolution of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, approving a cable television license agreement between the city of Casa Grande and Cox Communications, Arizona, LLC, and authorizing the execution of the contract.
Mayor McFarland, I move approval of resolution number 5094 as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgibbons.
Yes.
Councilmember Horton.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harmon.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. Next item is I-6. It's an ordinance approving terms and conditions of an agreement between the City of Casa Grande, Maricopa, and Pinal County and Dignity Health and Community Alliance and Against Abuse and no.
And all
Go ahead,
those
Chief.
others.
Sorry. That's all.
Mayor and
That's
council,
all.
our staff's recommending that mayor and council approve the terms and conditions of an agreement between the city of Casa Grande, city of Maricopa, and various other partners for a multi-partner family advocacy center, authorizing the expenditure of public funds in the amount not to exceed $10,000 annually during the terms of the agreement, which is a 5-year agreement, if you remember from our study session, and authorizing the execution of an agreement. As Scott said earlier, we just went into ours last week, so I won't bore anybody with any details, but I would like to remind council and the mayor that it is our opinion that this agreement will make our service more efficient. It'll help our crime victims in Casa Grande, in the long run, save the city of Casa Grande some money. Also, it'll add or provide greater access to medical services in our closest current one, which is Eloy right now. So with that, I'd answer any question you may have.
I do have a comment. It's just, I just want to compliment everybody that's been involved in this situation. So there was a well-meaning plan out there to meet a need and what could have been really, you know, everybody being up in arms and protecting their territories, it wasn't that way. People got together, they looked at it and they said, oh, this is what we're doing, and it was a mutual plan, and I just want to compliment everybody on that.
Thank you. Gloria, can I get an ordinance number, please?
Ordinance number 3065, an ordinance of the council of the city of Casa Grande, Arizona, approving the terms and conditions of an agreement between the city of Casa Grande, city of Maricopa, Pinal County, Dignity Health, Community Alliance Against Family Abuse, and the Wing Home Hope Family Advocacy Foundation, Inc., for a multi-partner family advocacy center, authorizing expenditure of public funds in amount not to exceed $10,000 annually during the term of the agreement, and authorizing execution of an agreement.
Mayor McFarland, I think Chief McCrory did a really good job. As was mentioned by Councilman Cortson, and I would be most happy to move for approval of ordinance number 3065.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Gloria, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember McBride.
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald.
Yes?
Councilmember Cortson.
Yes.
Councilmember Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Herman.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes. All right, we have exhausted everything, so we'll move to the last item on the agenda, which is reports. And I want to remind council, this is just a reminder, that due to open meeting laws requirements, you know, please give your report and don't comment on other people's reports. It's just a reminder, okay? Thank you. And Lisa, since you're there by yourself, I'll let you go first.
Oh, over here. Friday, the police department had their volunteer dinner, and, you know, I just wanted to compliment Wendy at the police department. She just does a fantastic job with all those volunteers, and, you know, I believe she said that there was 28,000 hours that were completed by volunteers last year. And, you know, when I did the math, it came out to 13 full-time employees a week. So it just amazed me that you guys have that many people that are just so committed, and they actually come, you know, on a regular basis. They have roles in, you know, in their volunteer program, and it just was amazing, the people that we sat with. Dick, you were at the table with me, but so she did a great job. I want to compliment her on that wonderful dinner. The Homeless Coalition is gearing up for their water drive, and they are going to be taking collections of water at the United Way. So as you know, when the temperatures rise, there's a lot of people that are getting heat stroke and everything else, not just homeless, but other people that are out there. So they're collecting water, so if anyone wants to donate water to United Way, they're the water station here in Casa Grande. They're going to try to get with the police department. I think currently the police officers are carrying water in their vehicles, but they're getting their own water. So she's hoping with this water drive, she can provide water out to the police department and the fire department. So, you know, we're all going through this strategic planning thing. I think the majority of us were there for the Casa Grande Union, or Casa Grande Elementary School District Visioning session, and, you know, it was great to see the support that Dr. Gonzalez had, and it's nice to have that, you know, that fresh, you know, new vision and ideas and her leadership. So that was a really nice thing. And then we are in the final stages of the task force on homelessness, the mayor's task force. We have one more meeting next week, and I believe the mayor sent an email to those people that have expressed interest in participating, since we're kind of at that final stage of the plan. Now we want to try to execute against that plan. So if anyone's interested, definitely get in touch with the mayor, the mayor's office, if you're interested in helping out. So that's it for me.
Pat?
All right. Well, this week on Saturday is the Youth Commission's annual or biannual day of shredding. So all of your tax receipts that you will be done with by then, and any other important papers, you can bring to First American Credit Union on the corner of Rodeo and Treckle, starting at 9 a.m. till noon. And they will be shredded for first box is free, and then a slight charge for each box thereafter. So come on down. The kids will be there to help unload and do the heavy lifting as well, hopefully. Just kidding, they'll be there. And we also I took the Youth Commission in a city van to the state capitol for the Democracy program, which they've been competing in all year. And they did their presentation that they did completely on their own, which was great, which involved their Youth Leadership Day that was at Vista Grande High School in February. And they received the Public Service Prize from the Democracy. So now they get to go to a meeting with some officials at ASU, which they're finalizing at the downtown campus, get a tour and learn all about public service. So it was a great thing. And Dr. Crow's wife was there in charge of it, who's the president of ASU. So it's a pretty big deal. After the police dinner, I made it over to the hospital raffle for a few minutes, but it was nice. There's some people still there, but it was a good turnout, and they raised a lot of money as well. And speaking of your taxes, which are due tomorrow, we got 2 extra days this year, you can still donate to local schools, the Boys and Girls Club, Seeds of Hope, and a lot of other ones that I shouldn't have named specifics, but nonprofits, you can find that list online, and you can donate tomorrow and take a direct deduction.
Catholic schools, too.
Yes, Catholic schools, same. Off of your state taxes, and do that, and get a refund too. But check with your tax advisor. Don't take tax advice from me. But just remember, you still have 1 day to donate to local charities against your state taxes.
Thank you for that advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Powell?
Can they also donate to small business, Matt? Can't do that.
Nope.
I want to thank Kevin Lewis for, and his department. The streets look the best I've seen them in I don't know how long downtown, striped and covered and really look great. And I was really happy this morning, they were doing some work, one of the utilities down the road from our store, and they put a sign right by our store, prepare to stop.
And then Dick kept moving it closer to the door.
It was right beside the building when it ended up. I went to the Home and Service Expo that they had a couple of Saturdays ago, and the realtor panel discussion they had was regarding the growth in Central Pinal County. And there was the mayor of Coolidge and the mayor of the Pinal Group, and also a guy from the county named Rudy. And they talked about different things that are going on. One of the things that I thought was interesting is Coolidge is talking about seriously purchasing 40 acres, or maybe already has, and putting some of these small homes on it, which go between $30,000 and $50,000 or something like that. And we can get a hold of our ex planner and get a hold and find out from him what they're doing. He was there, Rick was there, but he left before I got to talk to him. But I told Lisa I went in one of those small homes. Red was there, her brother-in-law, and there's more room than you think if you don't have a lot of stuff, and a lot of people don't have a lot of stuff, so it would be something to maybe think about. I think most of us enjoyed the morning chamber meeting at the Casa Grande Innovation Academy. I think the kids were very impressive and very articulate for the young age that they were in, and it was an impressive visit. Casa Grande Police volunteers, and I forget what figure the chief gave us that this saves money for the community, but it's huge what those volunteers do, and I think honoring them and making sure they feel that we're very thankful for what they do is important, and also very good for us. I think a lot of us went to Joetta, the superintendent of the CG Elementary Schools, had a very impressive study session regarding the vision and direction of the K-8 school system. And she was kind of like our strategic plan. There was ups and downs. There was things that were opportunities, and there were things that certainly were not, and that were issues that had to be solved before they got to it. And I wanted to say we're making progress on the improvements at the Casa Grande Rodeo grounds. Thanks very much to Larry and Steve and the group of staff that's been working on this. We received a $90,000 grant from the Ak-Chin Indian Reservation, which is really, really helpful. And so next year at the rodeo, we'll have a different look out there. We'll have a roof over the stands. We'll have new bucking chutes. Mayor, you're out there. You riding your horse. So.
Yeah, I'm ready.
You and Larry, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So anyway, that concludes what I have.
Mary?
A little bit on what Dick was saying about the small homes, and that is, I've been following that also. He and I have been talking and all, and some of these areas where they're doing, so the purpose of the small home is for affordable housing, but it's nice housing. I mean, you have new appliances and that. And what I've seen a lot is if you take something like the 40 acres, you do that, but you build a common area. So there's the parking's all around the edges, the perimeter, yeah, and you have, so instead of your yard, you've got this common square. So not only is it going to give some good affordable housing, but it also brings communities together, and it kind of gives you a different vibe, which a lot of people are looking for, and a lot of our young people that are looking, that are well educated and looking to for industry in that. This is the type of thing that they're looking for. So I would really like to see a little bit more of that, and definitely going to be keeping an eye on what Coolidge is doing. What Mr. McGuire was saying about as far as some of the projects we have, and I agree with every one of them. It has been a little bit of time since we've really taken a look at it. But also we've had some other, with downtown, that's changed, shifted a little bit with the kind of explosion of the neon sign park and some of the art installations that are going there. I feel like that vision is changing a little bit, and maybe not so much on that south, that project on the other side, particularly because it doesn't appear that we're going to have the railroad backing that, which would really need to have some of that, but want to really, the appreciation, because so much of what is going downtown now has to do with so much of the people down there in Rena and all of the different, and of course, Marge Jantz. So we've got to say that. So there's a little bit of that, and I agree, we need to look at it. Also, I've been doing a lot of reading about over the last 6 months, particularly, as you have bridges falling, streets, potholes and that, and the governing magazine that we get. And it was an interesting article about, we need to be fixing before we build in some ways. Take what we have now, instead of letting it go down while we're concentrating on building something new and improve somewhere else, we need to keep our infrastructure, what we have now, and keep it nice and improve it in that, and taking certain areas of our city, particularly like Florence Boulevard, which is really the entrance to our city. This is where people are going to get their impression of who we are and what we are, and that is maybe start doing a plan of looking at it and saying, let's kind of make our mark here, and getting with the property owners and with the city, and building something along, doing a kind of an urban planning idea, give it a touch of class and individuality. Maricopa they started new from the start. They went from farm and then new. And so we've just kind of built and we kind of plodded along, and I would like to see a little bit of pizzazz along there, since that's how people will perceive us, is through that. And finally, as Pinnell Partnership has their meeting at Robeson Ranch this Friday at 7:30. And so I'm looking forward to that, because the economy just keeps changing and what's happening there. So hopefully we'll learn something new there.
Isn't that the Paramount Theater?
Excuse me?
Yes. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Donna?
Just a couple things. I just wanted to thank Kevin and Dwayne. I did have some conversations about some downtown streets, and there was some concerns about some handicap parking. They took care of it, met with the business owners, so thank you very much for that. Also wanted to shout out to Officer Laura, who received recognition from the County Attorney's Office this past week for Victims' Rights Week. That was a really important week. It is National Volunteer Week, so everything that you're saying about volunteers is very important. I know that. And lastly, we have a great group of volunteers in our community that I got to visit from Evergreen School this past week. And I know Mary really wants this, but she can't have it. I was presented with Make Kindness Grow. And this was a group of young people from Evergreen that they have actually started an official kindness club. And they do acts of kindness every single week. They teach kindness. They go out of their way to do things. And I went to visit them, and I think that in light of everything that goes on, it's really nice that schools understand that the simplest things are really important. And so these kids had a great time, and I had a great time trying to help them do their project, but I got the first one, so you'll have to bid for this.
So it's the original.
I just wanted to thank Evergreen for the work that they're doing, because those kind of things are very important.
They said they were missing one after you left. So.
Yeah.
All right, well, great, nice reports, thank you, everybody. So I'm the last one to stand in front of everybody leaving tonight, so I'll try and make it short, but there's a lot on my list, so I'll cut some off, I promise. Last week, Larry and I met with D.R. Horton's division president, and we talked about D.R. Horton's presence here in town and what their plans are. She actually just brought down plans that day for some new model homes that they will begin to build north of Cottonwood between Peart and Treckle. So just across from Safeway, and where those three houses all sit by themselves. Mm-hmm. So that's the area that they are going to start construction. She also informed us, because they were named as one of the, in a lawsuit with the county on the RTA tax, which is our transportation tax. And she informed us that D.R. Horton has dropped out of that lawsuit. So she apologized for the misconception or the perception that we had of D.R. Horton. So it was a good meeting, and I got a lot out of it. The Pinal Alliance for Economic Growth is just forming an I-10 committee that actually are trying to put together a meeting right now. And it will consist of members of that group, which are Eloy and the county and the city and myself will be part of that committee. I also recruited Roger Vanderpool to be on that committee, so Roger can add some good insight in terms of DPS and that sort of thing. So that will begin to move forward. And this, when I say I-10, this is the Casa Grande to Chandler section of I-10. We had the Ride for the Warrior charity golf tournament last weekend. It was very successful. Had like 32 teams. Mark McCrory's team was one of the winning teams, so congratulations, Mark.
Why are you smiling?
It's because I'm jealous, he won. This week, tomorrow actually, out at Peart Park, from 10 to 12 is going to be a celebration of it's the Week of the Young Child. And it's tomorrow at 10 to 12. There'll be dental and sensory screenings, crafts and activities, music, fun. It's for young people birth to 5. So if you know anybody with some very young children, please bring them out. I'll be reading a proclamation tomorrow morning at the park, which you all signed, matter of fact, last week. And then don't forget also, anybody who's in the Mayor's Reading Club, that's this Wednesday, right around 8 o'clock, so don't forget your assignments. Larry and I will be at an ADWR meeting talking to the Arizona Department of Water with the rest of the Pinal County stakeholders meetings. So, and I think the plan is to review the water model, what they've done to it, where we're at, and so hopefully we'll have a report back on our status there.
Not a lot of fuzziness in there right now.
Yeah, there is. This Wednesday also is Valago's STEM night. That's at 5:30. So if you're interested in science and technology and engineering and math, and have some kids that are interested in that, that'll be at Valago. This should be a lot of fun as well. And I know Mary said that the mayor's task force, our final meeting is the 24th, and we are going to.
It was actually Lisa.
Lisa, God.
She even pointed at.
I pointed to you.
Hold your sign here anymore.
Lisa.
You need a big
I need
My name is Lisa.
I need a brain transplant. So, but what I wanted to let everybody know is that we will come out with a final goals and action plans that we'll move forward with, and that we will make public here in the next probably 30 days or so, just to give an update on that. That's all I have, and I apologize. I publicly apologize to Lisa.
Oh, that's okay.
I made him a diagram up here.
That's not going to help. Paste it right here.
You can look at this, Lisa.
All right. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
This is what I made it.
You need to stick it like up here.